downtown Grand Forks. Welcome to the Grand Forks Committee of the Whole for what should be an entertaining and perhaps spirited discussion this evening for Monday, November 28th, 2022. Under item 1, call to order. 1.1, welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Lensky. Here. Kavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Bean. Have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Storstad. Under discussion items, item 2.1, 2022 employee holiday hours. Ms. Bovet, good evening.
Good evening, Council President Sandy, members of the committee. We'll start off easy this evening. This is our annual request to approve 4 holiday hours for the employees as a thank you and recognition of a job well done. These holiday hours are greatly appreciated by our employees and are utilized at a rate of about 89–90%. There is no cost incurred for this. It cannot result in overtime. If the hours are not used by July 1st, then they disappear. They don't carry over from year to year. I'm here for any questions.
Great. Any questions, Mr. Kavami?
Move approval.
Moved by Kavami, second by Osowski. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.2, classification and compensation study consulting agreement with Condrey and Associates. Ms. Bovet.
Good evening. Yes, again, what you have before you today is a request for approval to enter into a consulting arrangement with Condrey and Associates to complete a classification and compensation study for the city. As discussed during budget presentations for 2023, workforce issues including recruitment and retention are paramount, and the city needs to ensure that we're doing everything within our power to remain competitive and attract new employees as well as motivate and retain our current employees. Our current compensation system was put into place over 20 years ago and has served the city well overall. However, low performance funds coupled with rapid market movement mitigated by our half comp block plan design have resulted in pay compression issues. And for those of you who are only vaguely aware of what the half comp block means, it's when the market indicates a 10% movement within our plan, our employees only move 5% within that range. So they do not experience the entirety of that recommended market increase, and that's to smooth over those market increases from year to year. So that only applies to positions or people within positions between the 80 and 100%. If it falls below the 80% minimum, they will experience the entirety of that percentage movement until they hit that minimum. This feature was designed, as I said, to smooth over large market fluctuations. But I believe the time is right to reevaluate our compensation structure. When we had our plan put into place 20 years ago, there were dozens, even hundreds of applicants for individual position openings. In today's climate, we oftentimes have to post the same position opening 3 to 4 times to fill all of our open positions. So city administration, department head, and employees have been in constant conversation regarding recruitment and retention of employees, including conversations regarding pay and benefits. Employees are generally supportive and appreciative of the city's administration willingness to engage in a review and engage a compensation consultant to review our current plan. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have regarding our request for a proposal, the Condrey and Associates proposal itself, or our current compensation plan.
President Sandy, I've got a question.
Yeah, Mr. Weigel.
Ms. Bovet, why isn't this something that we can't do in-house? Why is that something we have to have a consultant for?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Council Member Weigel. I would say this is something that my department and myself, we're all familiar with. However, the consultants, this is their bread and butter. They deal with the compensation and classification systems all day, every day. They're the cutting edge. They know what's out there. They know what's new, what's available, what's been done, what works, what doesn't work. They're the subject matter experts. And then plus, utilizing a consulting firm provides that objective review of our internal positions and compensation system.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, thank you, Dan, Mr. Weigel. Anything further, Mr. Weigel?
Not at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Bovet, timing on this, is there a reason why this needs to be done right away? I mean, we've already put together the salary plan for 2023, correct? So,
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say 2023? I'm sorry. It's 2024.
no, you didn't say
oh,
anything.
okay.
I'm just pointing out that we've already done the salary plan for next year.
For 2023,
So we would be
yes.
looking to implement any changes for 2024, which we usually start that process April-ish? Is that right?
Yep, April-ish. And actually, that timing coincides perfectly with implementing a new consulting or consultation plan, classification plan design, as it takes about 4 to 4.5 months to complete a complete review and implement a new system.
Sure. Mr. Kavami, questions?
Yeah, I appreciate this. I think this was one of the items that we had talked about at a prior council meeting, was if we don't like the system or we're not agreeing with the system, let's get someone to give us a little bit of opinion. I think that what's important with something like this is continually reviewing it, and if that's a biannual process, you know, is there the opportunity to maybe glean some of that secret sauce through this process? And then, you know, I think if you present an update every year, it almost becomes too frequent, because maybe you haven't had enough time to grow or pain or this or that. And I just see something like this where if you revisited it more regularly, not 20 years, but maybe not every year, in detail to know how to change the plan with the market, I think that could make sense. I think this is great. I appreciate this.
Yes, Ms. Lunsky.
Is this the only proposal you got?
No, Councilmember Lenski, we sent out the information on the proposal to 13 consulting firms, and we received 5 proposals back.
I'm just curious, like in Georgia, is the climate the same in Georgia as it is in North Dakota?
So this consulting firm, Condrey and Associates, does have experience here in the state of North Dakota, plus South Dakota and regional, as well as southernmost states. Particularly, that was one of the reasons why we chose the Condrey and Associates proposal over some of the other ones. They had more regional experience.
Thank you, Ms. Lunsky. Ms. Bovet, so if I recall correctly, I was, well, several of us discussed it, but I think I was quite vocal about following our policy related to the pay for performance and others, and I was outvoted, which is fine. But I think part of the conversation that I brought up was if there's something wrong with our salary policy, our pay policy, then we should look to update it. If I recall correctly, I had suggested that we get a group of the city employees, the city employee reps, perhaps HR and city staff, and then 1 or 2 of the council members to get together to just talk about what people like and dislike about our current policy, rather than scrapping our current policy to implement a different policy. I would be in favor of, because we have 20-plus years of experience with the policy that you even say that has been working well for us, if there are ways that we can just talk about, you know, with some of the employees and the employee reps, the things that they don't see as you know, well, in your words, they've lost confidence with the plan. I'm not sure I understand how they lost confidence with the plan, but if we can figure out what it is about the plan that they're not confident in, perhaps we can fix that rather than paying a consultant to come up with an entirely different plan. So I, for one, would be in favor, I would prefer to postpone this item a month or maybe 2 months. And, you know, I'd prefer to get it done before the end of the year, but people are busy. Anyway, I'd like to get a group together and just talk about it and try to see if we can figure out what it is that the employees are not confident in, and perhaps we can save us some money and, you know, come up with a plan that they will all think is good. So I don't know how others feel about that. Mr. Veen?
I think your idea has merit. I mean, you could at least talk it through and see if there's solutions. If there's not, your next step would be to follow through with the proposal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So, may I just address your take on gathering together a group of individuals, including HR and employees and city council members? That would actually be built into the administration and the rollout of this plan, would be gathering that group of individuals to design and implement the pay structure, the pay philosophy of the city council moving forward. It's your chance to take a look at how you are paying employees. That's built into this process.
Can't we meet, though, without paying someone $67,000 first?
We can meet on that, but the $67,000 is really, it's about paying for the professional's time and energy to spend to evaluate and audit our current system from top to bottom and recommend a structure going forward.
I mean, to me, it looks like being a consultant is really where the money's at these days. So, but I do feel that maybe our HR department is capable of taking on some of these tasks themselves instead of paying for someone outside. I mean, you hear probably more than anybody else does about the concerns of our employees. And so I don't know why we have to pay someone to find out what the concerns are.
We're paying someone to survey the data, to look at all of the factors that go into designing and maintaining a classification system, and interviewing employees, creating that buy-in, creating that trust and faith in the system, and education. So there's a lot of reasons for hiring a consultant to facilitate this process.
Mr. Kavami? Yes, sir.
Just a question for you. How many compensation plans have you written?
I've written 0.
Yeah. So the thing that I see and the value I see is that there's expertise, national expertise. There's expertise in the job market that we don't understand. There's also something to be said about talking to someone that's not Tangi. Talking to someone and someone might not be fully honest with a benefit or a feature or this or that if the wrong person's in the room. So very often a third party that has expertise, that's independent, that doesn't have a vested interest in whether or not you keep working here or you get that promotion or whatever it is, I think that there can be a lot of value in helping us get there. I think $67,000 every 20 years is probably fine, you know, in my opinion, as far as making sure that our employees are compensated appropriately for the market that we're in. It's very hard to hire people. I don't think that we want anyone to walk out of the room right now. So if there's a small investment that we can make, understanding that this isn't something we would do every year, this is something that maybe more than every 20 years, but certainly not every year. I would say that this is something that we shouldn't invent the wheel. We should have somebody help us that's done it many, many times and get it right. So with that, I'd move approval.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second. I will say that the Condrey and Associates, they have a salary plan. They have created a salary plan that they've implemented in dozens of cities across the United States. That salary plan, I don't know if you read it in the staff report or went out to their website. Their staff plan resembles, or their salary plan resembles the salary plan that our school district uses. It's a step plan that has a built-in raise every year for longevity, which is not how which is nowhere near how we've ever paid our employees. Plus, and I'm not sure how the other cities do it, but our school district collected bargains from that point on. And the reason why, Uncle Doug and Uncle Hal went to the current salary plan was to get away from that, because we had such high turnover and so much bad feelings. The morale of our employees was very low. And although our morale, the employees that I see don't seem to be unhappy. I mean, when I see people around town, I talk to city employees all the time. They don't seem to be really they might not be happy that they don't make enough, but I want to fix that, which is why I want to get everybody together and talk about it and see if we can't figure out a fix for our current plan. Mr. Phelan, thoughts?
Council President, I agree that we have every pay system has a form of a step. Our step is at 1.4% per, which with the half walk, it could be double that. So we all have this pay plan. If we could compromise, we could organize a meeting with the city council this week, with the leadership, with the employee reps, and you could hear them out. And I think some of the struggles that Tangi's have is she has departments that are coming to her, multiple departments, that are concerned about a compression, they're concerned about losing folks, and what they're asking her is to find solutions across the board, and it's become very challenging for her. And so it's a serious matter because we are in competition with other communities, and this is another look at that. So if we could organize a meeting, and I would say the plan we would come up with, the school district would be different than what we would come up with. We'd have them build off of what we already have, and it probably wouldn't be a revolution, it'd be more of an evolution that we would look at. And I think what we've heard from our employee rep groups and employees, one of the things we've told them is, number one, we have a great city. We have a mayor and city council that really cares about the employees, and we're going to take an additional look at kind of what we have, and if there's something better out there, we're going to make a jump to it, okay? And you know what, that has provided a lot of confidence in the employees that we are going to take another look, and I agree with Councilmember Kavami, sometimes we all get in our own bubble, having some fresh eyes on it with a new person coming in. You know, there's something about, if I'm an equipment operator or a mechanic, if somebody comes to town that's not from the city, okay, and asks me about my job, kind of what I'm doing, how that is very meaningful. And because thankfully, we don't have a corporate culture that's top down. We have a culture in which it's bottom up, where even if you're in the central garage, or if you're in the equipment operator, or if you're a police officer, we're going to have somebody come talk to you about your position and kind of where you're at and things that we may not think of. That's third party to ourselves. And it would be a demonstration, whether we move forward or not, it is a demonstration of not, to Councilmember Wasowski, you know, I really appreciate you, but it's not because we're going to pay just to have consultants come. We're coming here, this is an investment in our employees, it's an investment in their opinion, and we want to be able to demonstrate top down and bottom up that we care about our employees, and we care so much that we're going to have come talk to all the various employee groups. And when you're at an employee group meeting, that is meaningful to them to do that. So I'd welcome if our council leadership would be, if Tangi can organize a meeting yet this week with the employee reps, they would love to talk to the members of the board of directors.
Mr. Weber?
President Sandy, council asked for this, but the motion to approve just died for want of a second. I'd like to move that we postpone until the next cow for reconsideration at that time.
Great.
And not part of the motion, but we could follow through with what you just suggested.
Is there a second? Second by Veen. Any other comments?
Could-
Yes, Mr. Lee.
Just very quickly, I think what would be helpful, and that's why I think the 2-week delay might be great, is so we can understand the problem a little bit more. I think the solution you presented is good, and it's probably the appropriate one, but if we could have the discussions to understand more of the issues that are being problematic, it helps enforce support of the solution.
I think the message we're going to get out to the employees is that we'll refine this, have a better understanding, but I leave this as it's an investment in our employees, and we want to make sure that's the message we need to get across, because, this city of Grand Forks and many cities, we use consultants a lot, and so we use consultants in the millions, and so this $67,000 I really do think is a good and wise investment, but we'll reframe it, and I think importantly, we'll make sure that you hear from the employees themselves about some of the concerns they have, and how this agreement may or may not get at it, and maybe we can reframe it, and maybe even engage with the consultant about what we've heard further, and so that we don't hire somebody and it doesn't meet the needs of employees. Tangi and I think it does, and we're really appreciative that you'll take up this conversation further.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 2.3, bid awards for project numbers 8559, 60, 61, 62, and 63, districts 591, 356, 592, 767, and 593, sanitary sewer, water main, storm sewer, paving streetlights, box culvert, Southern States, 9th re-subdivision, Phase 2. Mr. Grasser, good evening.
Thank you, Council President Sandy, members of the committee. These are the bids for Southern Estates, 9th re-subdivision. It's along South Columbia Road. There's some maps in your report, more detail as to what the infrastructure is and exactly where it's at. This is the final step in the special assessment process, creating the district and getting the bids out. So we did receive bids on November 23rd. We had 4 good bidders, and they were all pretty tightly grouped bids, which is always nice to see. It tells you everybody understood the project and we're putting their best foot forward on it. The bids we received, they're good bids. They were 18% under the engineer's estimate. I think that's reflective of the fact that it's a pretty early bid opening for 2023. Gives us our first look at what the prices might look like in 2023. The low bidder was Robinson Excavating, which is a known local contractor. And we would like to recommend award of that bid to Robinson in $1,969,694.42.
Thank you, Mr. Grasser. Mr. Weber moves approval. Is there a second? Second by Kavami. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Grasser. Item 2.4, Public Transit Agency Safety Plan. Mr. Bergman.
Good
safety
evening,
plan
President
tonight.
Sandy and members of the committee. This is again another one of our federal guidelines that we have to follow through with. We used to have a agency safety plan, but now they decided to change the terminology, and so now it has to be a public transit agency safety plan. Plus, we had to put in a few other safety items on there. One of the items that we have on here is that we have to have a safety management policy, we have to have a safety risk management, safety assurance, and a safety promotion plan, which the city currently does have. But this is one of those items that, because of our larger transit properties, decided that they didn't need one. They've now forced it upon everybody. So we got together with the consultant that we have to help us write this thing up and get it approved. So we are looking for approval from our city council so we can move it on forward to our North Dakota DOT office and to our FDA officials for final approval.
Thanks, Mr. Bergman. Any questions about the agency safety transit plan? Mr. Weber moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Weigel. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.5, Transit Asset Management Plan. Mr. Bergman.
Councilmember Sandy, again, and committee members, again, this is another one of our policies that we got rammed down our throat, so to speak. We have to make sure that we are watching our assets and making sure that we have them tracked and everything. Our city has done a good job on it. One of the items that we have is that we have to prove to them why we're replacing vehicles or any capital items that we have on our list. And we have to make sure that we're maintaining it in a proper fashion. And this, again, is one of those policies, plans that we have to have put together to make it work. So we're asking for approval to go ahead and move this forward also.
Thank you again, Mr. Bergman. Any questions? Moved by Veen, second by Lensky. Thank you. Any other questions? Did you have a question,
Yeah.
Mrs. Owski?
So how many hours, like employee hours, go into making all these different plans that you guys are required to do?
Numerous hours.
Numerous hours? And so these are required to get federal funding, correct?
That is correct.
So, like, how many people ride these buses and everything like that? Like, how many people do you help transport on a daily basis?
About, well, I couldn't tell you on a daily basis right now, but I do know that last year we had 179,000. Currently, we're at 235,000, and we haven't even finished out the end of the year yet.
Those are like kind of everyday riders, or?
Those are counting
just-
rides every day of the week that we transport people. We have no way of tracking exactly who's riding. We cannot tell you whether it's a female or a male. We cannot tell you whether it's a disabled client or a child. We are only required to count the number of rides that we give per day. That's all we are required to do. Otherwise, we start getting across the discrimination factor of pinpointing who we're transporting and where.
Okay, so is the funding that we receive like a good deal, I guess, if they're ramming down our throats these types of policies and all the man hours that go into just creating these?
This is only part of what we do. The big thing that tracks everything that we do is called a National Transit Data Report. We do that every year. It's a 4-month process. Maureen knows for a fact it took us almost 5.5 months to get this last one.
And you're
completed.
required to do that yearly?
Required. And that tracks everything. Vehicle miles, vehicle hours, passengers, passengers per mile, passengers per hour, the dollars we spend on repairs of vehicles, the dollars we spend on fuel, whether it's a revenue service vehicle or a non-revenue service vehicle. They track the hours that we do for our equipment repairs to our building repairs. They track everything.
So how many employees do you guys hire just to do this type of work versus actually transport people?
Well, we've got finance department that's involved. We got the HR department that's involved. We get some others involved in other departments that we need to have assistance with. I know Todd's been involved with it quite often. 9 times out of 10, the project is dumped on my lap to do it.
How
so-
many,
Hours, I couldn't tell you.
I think the answer, is it worth it? Yes. It's
okay,
worth it.
thank you.
Why is it worth it? The federal government pays 50% of the operating of the public transit service. and
So
when I-
all this stuff is paid for 50%
50%.
by the federal government?
and then-
All the work that goes
Yeah,
into
and then
this?
on the
Okay.
capital side, 80% is paid by the federal government. And so, and we also receive state funding and obviously local. So I think the answer is yes, we wouldn't have the metropolitan system that we have. And I think we should also remember that we have the fixed route bus side, and then we have the paratransit senior rider side. Those are complementary, and I think if you look at the paratransit senior, we're giving an additional 60 to 70,000 rides there too. So it's really complementary services. Because I'm going to say this, because Dale can't brag about himself. And sometimes his language is very sharp, but he's right. A lot of this stuff are federal requirements. And, you know, the challenge you have when we're a small metro, but we have the same rules that New York City has, right? New York City has to have these rules, we have to have these rules, because we are receiving Federal Transit Administration funds. We have a very low overhead to get this done. Why do we have that? Because we have Dale Bergman. And he does a lot of work, and when Dale chooses to retire one day, we're not going to be able to replace all that Dale does 24/7, from driving the bus to doing reports to doing this. And so Dale has, later in the report, you're going to see a mobility manager asking that we can help fund that. That's another manager position, but we have a really low overhead. Most of it's direct services, bus drivers, dialer ride drivers, senior rider drivers, dispatchers that are dispatching things. And we should be very thankful to Dale Bergen because we couldn't do all that what we're doing without Dale, and I see what he does day to day. And, you know, I'm really woeing the day when he's no longer with us, Councilmember Wasowski.
Thank you,
So the
Mr.
answer,
Phelan.
short answer is yes, it's all worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski and Mr. Phelan and Mr. Bergman. Any other questions about the transit asset management plan? Anyone want to take some action? Oh, we had a motion and a second. You're right. Thanks. So, no other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Great. Motion carries unanimously. 2.6, authorized submission of 5310 grant application. Mr. Bergman, Mobility Manager.
Councilmember Zandy, again, this is one of our annual funding opportunities that we get. The state provides us funds through our federal government for providing a mobility manager. This grant is for both wages and benefits at 80% of the total cost. And so we're recommending approval to go ahead and file through the state for these funds.
Any questions from Mr. Bergman? Yes, Ms. Ozowski.
Who is currently responsible for the planning, marketing, and education?
Christy Slominski is our paratransit supervisor, and she is also the one that handles all this stuff for our paratransit side.
So then this is a completely new position?
No,
correct?
this
No?
has been the same position for many, many years. Previously to this, we used to have Paul McCullough, and then before that, we had Allie Rude. This has been going on for about 10 years.
Councilmember Osowski, this is an annual grant that Mr. Bergman has to bring back for ongoing funding. So if you're here next year and we're so fortunate, you'll see this grant application again to fund this position.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Weber?
I'll move approval, but we had some communication today about disabled vets, and you're gathering some information about that.
Yes, I am.
No need to discuss that tonight. I'll move approval.
Great. Moved by Weber. Is there a second by Lunsky? Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bergman. Item 2.7, 2023 wastewater fog abatement program. Ms. Barbie.
Good evening, President Sandy, members of the committee. This is an extension of a program that I brought to you just a couple weeks ago. Was it a month or two ago? We've been working with fog abatement actually for years, although have been more effective this last year, working with Steady State Solutions and IPS, but now as the Solutions Group. We put out an RFP and asked for proposals to help assist us with this continuation of the program, and they did submit a proposal in the amount of $138,960. That would help us continue what we're currently working on. We've got a number of areas in town that we have to go out and address either weekly and or monthly to deal with what we have as fats, oils, and grease kind of combines and causes some problems within our sanitary sewer system. It's pretty much, if it's going to clog your arteries, it could cause problems and clog our pipes. So that's what we're dealing with, and we've found some ways to help reduce that, and it's helped not only with our staff not having to do that activity or having to go out as frequently, but it also helps in the process of not having to clean out lift stations as often and air release valves, et cetera, where this product becomes a problem for our sanitary sewer system.
Great, thank you. Ms. Parvey, any questions about fog, fats, oils, and grease? Yes, Mr. Weber?
Thank you, President Sandy. I'm seeing two recommendations. One refers to an associated budget amendment. The other one indicates that you'll work on bringing such an amendment for fees back to us for the 24 budget cycle.
Yes,
Which of those should I go with?
Since the budget's been approved for 2023 already, I hadn't included anything in there for our fog abatement program, and I really, at the time, wasn't sure what to put in there. With that being considered, I'd like to have an approval of a budget amendment so that we can make sure that costs to cover that, but we've also been collecting fees for a number of years. I'd like to go back and look at those and have been working with finance, and I'll work with our IT department to figure out where we're at. And we implemented a fee structure back in 2009. It was never meant to recover all costs, but it was meant to help address costs within the system from at least our restaurant facilities or food service establishments. We have others that we can work with as well as we continue to learn more about areas that it is directly impacting.
Very good. Thanks for that clarification. I'll move approval.
Great, thank you. Mr. Weber moves approval, second by Mr. Veen. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Parvey. Item 2.8, discussion of project 8658, Grand Forks East Grand Forks Red River Crossing Engineering Agreement. Mr. Phelan.
Council President Sandy, and members of the Committee of the Whole, I'm also joined this evening by Mayor Gander, and we have Council President Olsted here from East Grand Forks too. And I'm taking to the words of Councilmember Kavami that we need to meet together more as our two councils. And so the next best thing is, I did talk to Mayor Gander and asked if they could come over and engage in the, with you as their counterparts as part of the discussion this evening. Maybe we can try to move something forward. What I did discuss with Mayor Gander is that we want to move, we do want it, this city council wants to move forward. And I think right now we all generally agree on Merrifield Road as moving forward, and we're stuck on that inner city part. And so I think the importance, because I think it will be an indication is we want to make sure that Grand Forks County and Polk County move forward on the bypass bridge, and they don't use us not moving forward on the intercity bridge as a reason not to move forward in kind, because this really has to be in partnership. And I also told Mr. Gander that I think we've allowed the location decision to kind of override what we're trying to do in this case. And so boiling it down, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to follow up on under this initial scope is how do we move forward with a bypass bridge? And as we move forward, I think we generally agree we need to revive that part. What do we need to do? And really that's what this first scope does. You know, what kind of funding can we get? Will we have to redo the overpass? How do we do the interchange? The whole thing. That will, I think, help set a course for that truck bypass. I think in parallel with that, we're trying to find how do we move forward with the intercity bridge. And because we've never done something like that, or if we have, it's been a long time since we moved forward. And I think to me that discussion shouldn't be centered on whether it's 32nd or Elks. It should be more centered on how do two communities move forward with an intercity bridge. That may or may not have a lot of North Dakota DOT or Minnesota DOT participation in that. How do we move forward as a community so that if we do go to the next step, we know if we can move that forward. So I think what we've gotten ourselves locked into is we're not quite sure how to move forward with an intercity bridge. And I think we have gotten locked into the location. And what I talked to Mayor Gander is, I think if we remove the location a little bit and just try to figure out how would two cities like us move forward with an intercity bridge? Is it possible? Is it doable for us? Even on the funding package, will the North Dakota DOT actually fund a portion of this, or are we going to get the word back based upon what we have is that they're not going to fund that, and that's going to change the decision making whether we want to move forward or not. So that's what we discussed. I also discussed if there is an intercity bridge location, if we should live so long and so on this issue. It seems like the Elks location has the most enduring legacy to move forward. And it seems like there's a lot of issues with 32nd at this point in time. So what I'm really here for is to help us move forward with our colleagues in East Grand Forks, but importantly also with the two counties, if we can find some way forward. And if you don't mind, Council President Sandy, if I could, they said they'd come here tonight and provide maybe some feedback from their side of the river, and maybe Mayor Gander, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words, and then just what I'm really trying to do get is something to move forward that we can both sides can live forward with. I think the other really important part is that Dave Karinko and I, we did recommend this four-way split, which I think it only makes sense because one bridge is out in the county, one bridge is in the city, and to me that should be split in four, and the city's shouldn't just bear the whole cost for both locations. And that's the other change that we did with East Grand Forks. And that if the counties are in, and I think they are in, that we want them as partners, but we also want them as funding partners on this.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Mayor, good evening. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it. So if you want me to open up, and I'll gladly take questions, and we can have a nice conversation. And Council President Olsted would be happy to jump in also at a point. This really is a chance to hopefully clear up if there would be some misunderstanding, continuing to build trust between our two cities and our two organizations. It's very difficult to really have a conversation like this from across the river if we're not actually together. Then a little bit of falsehood finds its way into the conversation, and there's no chance to clean it up and set the record straight. Because if there's not a foundation of factual, truthful information, we don't have anything to build on. And if there's not a foundation of trust between our two organizations, we also have nothing to build on. And I think one of the things that really, I say this anywhere I go. I say it on the radio. I say it to you now publicly. I'll say it privately. Three things about this bridge project. If we're talking about the neighborhood intercity bridge, one, it has to achieve our traffic objectives. We have certain traffic objectives, and those are really well laid out by the MPO, but we intuitively know we have a lot of destinations on the south, on both sides, and a lot of trips originating on the south. So they have to go north to the Point Bridge to go back south. So our traffic objectives are to really shorten up that commute. As you all know, you've heard the number, 12,000 miles a day wasted, redundant miles north-south, until we can clean that up and create that more direct route. So that's really the biggest part of our traffic objective, is taking out all those redundant miles on Reeves, on Belmont, by Phoenix, and on our side, Biglin Road is getting overly congested by all those redundant north-south miles. So that's the number one objective. The number two is we're fiscally constrained. You don't have an unlimited supply of money. We have only so much money available, and we're going to have to be constrained fiscally. Third and finally is the political part of it. Making sure that whatever we do is placed in the best location for citizens on both sides of the river. We know we're dealing with more populated areas on your side. We're going to be as absolutely considerate to all those neighborhoods as we can possibly be. That is one of the big three. It's not the only one. We have to achieve our traffic objectives. We're still fiscally constrained, but we want to put it in the place and in such a way that it is the best fit for that neighborhood with the least impact. And then also whatever impact there may be, to intentionally mitigate that impact to make it, again, a really good fit for that neighborhood. Totally sensitive to that. I get it. It's a big deal. It's one of those reasons why this project may not happen, is we may not find that most harmonious political way forward through this. Please know also, as far as I can see, and I've looked at this for many, many years, for us, the traffic objectives are met at either Elks or 32nd, and they're met equally well. Now, there may be some fiscal constraint that would block one or the other of those. I hope we can get around that. But in terms of traffic objectives, both of those would be perfect for us. Equally good. Equally good. And I'll 100% support if we could find a smooth way forward at Elks in the next 6 months, a year. I'm all in. Okay, just know that, and I'll say it any which way. I think there's some feeling that I'm locked onto 32nd, or maybe we are as a council. No way. That's come forward through the MPO, probably starting 40 years and 30 years and 20 years and 10 years as the identified corridor. But if it doesn't pass the test of fitting in with your neighborhoods, if it doesn't pass that test, then it doesn't happen. We also know the only way that this bridge project ever happens is if it is to your benefit and our benefit. If you all collectively say this is going to be best for our people, because half those cars coming over will have North Dakota plates. Not everyone knows that, but half the cars coming over that bridge, plus or minus, will have North Dakota plates. So this really is to the equal benefit of our two communities. I understand the one big disparity, though, is you've built farther south than we have. And wherever it goes, it's coming in to a relatively undeveloped area on our side. I totally get that. And again, want to work with you all to find the best fit, and also built in the best way with the proper streetscape and the proper everything to look like a neighborhood street that just happens to cross the river. And now I will answer any questions there may be.
Any questions for Mayor Gander?
Council President Olsted, do you have anything to add? Come on up.
When are you going to move to Grand Forks, by the way?
Thank you, Council President Sandy and Council Phelan. Thank you for offering to have me come here. I think I'm going to speak for the council. I think I speak for the whole council. And I kind of go back to what we've worked on over the last 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. I think a lot of us have worked together on the projects that we've gotten together and worked across the river. Even though we've had some struggles with the states or counties trying to get things done, we as a city want to make sure we work together. I think that we've done a lot. We've done a lot with Mr. Phelan. And I think echo what the mayor's saying, that we want to work with you to make sure we're doing things right and doing correctly. We all know, we all agree on the Merrifield, and we want to make sure we move forward correctly on the neighborhood bridges. And I think, as you said it, if it works out and it's going to be Elks, great, let's move forward. And that's what we're looking with this SRF consulting firm, is to help us guide us into steps we have to take to make sure that we get these things done and get it done actually correctly, timely, and we move forward instead of looking back 10 years from now and 15 years from now and saying we should have did this back then. So that's where we're coming from, because we already say that now, we should have did it 20 years ago and stuff. So I know Mr. Sandy knows my mantra on that, but it's something that we want to work as a council with you, and I think we can achieve that by keeping this thing moving forward and keeping it in our sights. Because if we let it go to the side, it's never going to get done. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Olsted? None. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming as well.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. So, Mr. Phelan, further discussion on, are you looking for?
I would ask, and I think this time, if I would ask you to move forward, I think I'm asking for, move forward with the cost share of that 25%, and that would move forward with the Merrifield Road. And I would say, as part of the agreement, that we'd also want to move forward with the intercity or neighborhood bridge, and you're going to discover how we can move forward. And this first step in the process is not going to be locational driven. It's just going to help you with an intercity neighborhood bridge. What is it from a scoping perspective with this first step? What's it going to take for the two communities to move a project like that forward? And it's not going to be based on location. I think that's going to be valuable information as we come back here in 6 months to say, okay, this is what we need to do. And then I think there can be further conversations of how we further refine it. So I'd ask you to move it forward. And on the intercity bridge side, it's irrespective, it's not per location, but it's how to guide us through doing an intercity neighborhood bridge. And I think it's also a good faith effort to work with our colleagues in East Grand Forks, and it also keeps the two counties moving forward with the Merrifield Bridge and interstate interchange project too.
Mr. Phelan, so for the next legislative session, we have the Demers Avenue underpass, overpass as our project of choice, right? Do you see any reason why in 2 years we would have 2, 3, or 4 projects on our list of priorities for the 2025 session? Or would we probably only have one major project then as well?
I think this upcoming session.
And I'm sorry, you know where I'm going with
I know where
this,
you're going,
right?
yeah. And, you know, our cup with all the things we're working on is runneth over. There's no doubt about that. However, we don't say no around here. We just keep moving forward as part of the greater good. That's all we know around here.
I don't understand why the timing, what's the hurry? We're not going anywhere.
No.
And whether we do this project, whether we hire this consultant now and do it in 3 months or 6 months or 2 years from now is not going to change when the bridge gets built.
I would say this. Number one, I think this session, the critical part why we're trying to move those first 2 projects, the interstate interchange and the 42nd Demers underpass, is we're under this 5-year infrastructure bill for transportation. The federal government, thankfully, put a lot more funds And so that's why we're racing in good ways to try to get those done, because there's a real opportunity to get through final design and construction on those. I think right now, we're not, I think on those end, we're really engaged with the North Dakota DOT, and they want to have us get to victory. And when you get the North Dakota DOT want to get you to victory, you go for it, and BNSF. I think the challenge we have right now, and what this first item would resolve, we're not sure on bridges about where, because the state right now, they have so many issues with statewide bridges and reconstructions and renewals. We're not sure how they're going to see new bridges, which would be that intercity bridge, or this Merrifield bypass bridge, of how they're really going to see those projects over the next 5 years. I think getting that answer, Council President Sandy, is good to get sooner rather than later, so that we don't have these higher expectations than our reality. Because I think you could come back here in 6 months to say it's going to be hard. The state's not programmed anything for bridges for funding. It's going to go for all these various other locations. At least it would give you a sanity check. To your point, like, well, we discovered it's likely not going to happen on our side of the river due to funding, but you don't know that right now without going through the process. And I think it would be a wise, almost about $40,000 that we're going to spend to get that answer on both bridges.
But just based upon my simple math, it's 6 years before we have competing bridge projects that we're asking for the DOT to fund. Anything could happen in the next 6 years related to, funding and money at the state, so, okay. Any other comments or thoughts or questions? Mr. Kamami, sir?
Just one more thing to add. I just worry too, if we follow through with this, is the data still relevant 6 years from now? So whatever we purchased, does it change? Let's just say we move forward in good faith and it doesn't work out, but in 6 years, are we gonna have to do it again? I think that's my other concern of, it's not in the cards legislatively for the next 2 sessions in my priority book. So by doing that, are we just throwing money away? Sorry.
I think Council President saying, Council Member Kavan, I think that's a very good thought, but I think with this initial step, we're not going to be gathering data per se. Those would be succeeding steps if you even want to move forward. So I think this incremental step, it's not like the data, because we're concerned about with that environmental documents, and we should know if we were to move forward with a full environmental document on a bridge, it's likely going to cost $3 million total. And so this $151,000 that we're moving forward, it's just kind of an initial sanity check of, would it be wise to move to that larger step, is really what we're going to discover with these 2 locations.
Yeah. Mayor Gander, Council President Alstead, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for your words. I liked your priorities. I'd maybe shift that a little bit. For me, the top priority is we need to address child safety in all of our neighborhoods, especially those around schools. And we need to do that now, regardless of what we do or don't do with a 4th or 5th bridge. So I hope that we will continue discussing that and considering what needs to be done there. Beyond that, we do need to address the future needs of community and commerce in relation to a bridge. We know that according to the traffic counts, if we do nothing with in terms of a bridge, we will see 1,000 plus additional cars on Gateway, 1,000 plus additional cars on Demers, 3,000 plus additional cars each day on the Minnesota Bridge. We have a problem, and yes, President Sandy, we don't know what's going to happen over the next 2, 4, 6 years, and I'm hearing a lot about we can't waste this $38,000. We regularly, tonight we've approved several $1 million plus projects with very little discussion, and yet whenever it comes to something that involves $38,000, there's a lot of hand-wringing about fiscal responsibility. For me, what this $38,000 really is about is making sure that that we are full partners in this four-way venture with the two cities, the two counties. I don't want to do anything to let the counties off the hook on their responsibility or to give them an excuse to not address their responsibilities. We're being asked for a $151,000 study. Our share of that, under $40,000. I think we should just be adults in the room and step up and say, yes, we will do our part to get this information. We know the state and the feds always prefer shovel-ready projects. We don't know what their priorities might be 2 years from now or even next year. And this study may tell us something that we don't already know about these bridges. It might completely change our calculation. We need this information. And so I will move in support of Mr. Phelan's request.
There's a motion by the adult, Mr. Weber, and second by Ms. Lansky. Additional comments, Mr. Kavami?
So I'd just like to touch on the 3 points from Mayor Gander. I think that they're valid. I think maybe like Councilmember Weber, I might reorder them, which is fair, right? But I think if you look at the traffic, I think we have great information. I think if you look at the cost, I think we have great information. I think it's the third bullet that is something that we don't need to hire someone for. I think it's something that we need to discuss and see what it is that's even possible. And then if we can come to an agreement, if we can get 9 people to agree or 18 people to agree, then that's a big first step, because right now we're not, the 7 of us aren't agreeing, right? So let's try to have some communication around that third bullet point, because I don't think anyone would argue. You can look at a map and you could see there's clearly some connectivity issues, right? But that's not the point. There's clearly a cost issue, but that's not the point. The point is, let's talk about what could even work, and we could run into the bottleneck right there, and then we know we've saved ourselves $40,000. I don't think the money is an issue. I think let's focus on the third piece, and then we can move forward. If we can all agree as two councils where to go, then I think that's a lot better shot of us approving a study.
Thank you, Mr. Kavami. Mr. Veen, comments?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, and I understand what all has been said. The political agreement, I think we all see is the biggest issue that we have. The problem is that it's been stated so far that we're not interested in the technical solution, we're interested in the political solution, and I'm not sure how we get everybody together on a political solution, because everybody has a different path forward. I've stressed, let's find the technical solution and follow that primarily as the best way to do. The technical solution has looked at average daily traffic, has looked at costs, has looked at benefit cost ratio. Actually, it's looked at neighborhood input. All of that, you're right, we have all of that already. We lack the political part. And the technical part and the problem we can define the opportunities, we can define about, the infrastructure funds that are there today that may not be there tomorrow, but I can tell you people across the state are submitting projects to the state because they know this money is going to go someplace that might as well be here. And the state of Minnesota, to be honest with you, has surpluses that we might be able to tap into too. So there's all these opportunities, but we got to figure out how to get together and make that work. And maybe this study, because I'll be honest with you, we could do this through the MPO, but the idea is to have everybody come together and do it as the East Grand Forks who started this process out that we're trying to accomplish. So I think that's going to be a challenge on the political part if the technical part doesn't matter, but a lot of that is there. I do think the other shortfall is the financing. That's a huge issue. There's a lot of constraints to what we can do, what we can't do. Are there special programs that might be available? We've got to do a lot of research because I think that's difficult. And as Mr. Phelan has said, if we do the full environmental, which we have to do, it's going to cost a lot of money, and we don't want to do it unless we know for a fact that we have a path forward. So I have my own opinions about which one I think is the priority. I'm willing to let that kind of ride and say, let's figure out a process that gets us to the end. And I don't know of a better one right now than this and this. And so, therefore, I support it without discussing a location.
Further comments? I think, I've said it before, I think we have the votes to pass it at Elks. If people actually just want the bridge and they don't care where the location is, this is pretty simple, right? So we say that over and over again, yet we don't have consensus on the bridge. We don't get people to support it. So people either want the bridge or they want it in a specific spot. And so, not sure how to deal with that. Yes, Mr. Weber?
Mr. President, may I offer one thought?
Mr. Gander, please.
To your point, Mr. Veen, I do think maybe the technical aspect could help drive the political aspect. If we flesh out, and I agree wholeheartedly with you, Mr. Weber, that we better talk safety. But what are we doing when we take 12,000 miles out of our community driven every single day? It's miles not driven in our neighborhoods, miles not driven by our schools. It really is, it's an enhancement to the safety component. So I really think there's a way that the technical aspect, the practical, the beneficial components of this, if they are fleshed out through this process, can help us muster the political will to do, if it emerges, this is clearly the right thing. If there's a growing consensus, this is the right thing to do for safety, this is the right thing to do for, just all of it. That can help drive the political process to say it's not perfect. Nothing is on this side of eternity, nothing is perfect, but it's really good. And once it's in the ground and once it's built, folks will say, how did we do without it? I want to do a project like that folks on both sides say, how did we do without it? Come on. And so I think there is a way, if we let the technical thing go forward, that it can enlighten us enough to say, now that the political will crystallizes around this thing in a favorable way. Or it melts away and we say it's a dead duck, one or the other. So I do think that to take the next step, it's a bit of a leap of faith, but let's gather the information that will help to guide the political process. Those two are really intertwined, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gander. Mr. Weber, yes, sir.
I have this image of a young Dana Sandy mowing his grandfather's lawn and imagining that someday in 2022, I'll be president of this city council, and those people who have politicized this bridge in the past, I'll make them pay. And but currently, we're the ones politicizing this. And again, I don't want to leave close to $120,000 on the table and let the counties off the hook for their responsibilities. We need this study to give us the information that we need to move forward with a bridge. We know we need a bridge somewhere. I'm not saying which bridge or where a bridge. I'm saying we should be concerned about our community and commerce, and that a bridge is needed to protect those in the future. Engineering tells us that they do not have the skill set, the expertise, or the time to conduct this study. Engineering is recommending that we move forward with this study. So the idea that, I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
President Sandy.
Yeah, Mr. Weigel.
Just to clarify a couple quick things. I think last week this would have passed already if we would have focused on the Merrifield Bridge only. There was votes. It would have probably passed 5-2, 6-1, or 7-0 to only focus on the Merrifield. I think, like I said, and others have said, that's something we all agree on. Bridge is needed at Merrifield Road. I'm happy to support that process of Merrifield Road doing the study for that. In fact, if Mr. Weber made an amendment to only study Merrifield Road, I bet it would pass 7-0 tonight, and we'd get something accomplished. I don't, however, see it passing when you include either Elks Drive or 32nd Avenue South. And so when I look at the staff report, and I may have misheard Mr. Phelan, but in the staff report, it says to move forward with the Merrifield Road Bridge, but I may have heard Mr. Weber wrong as well. Both options are in there. Can somebody clarify what motion we have on the floor?
I'll amend the motion to move forward and approve an agreement with SRF Consulting for scoping engineering services to give us information on the best bridge options for serving community and commerce in the future. I'm not mentioning any location for a bridge. Community and commerce.
I think we know where that's going to lead to. Is we're giving them a very big opportunity to decide whatever they want. I would like to name the Merrifield Bridge in that amendment and move on and pass it so we can start looking at Merrifield Road. If you're so inclined, Mr. Weber.
Mr. Kavami?
Just one comment additionally. Could we ever table the portion outside of the Merrifield Road Bridge until after we are able to have a joint council meeting, perhaps in December?
Or postpone it? Yeah.
What is this joint meeting? Are you calling for a joint meeting?
I would make, that would be my follow-up motion, would be to request the administration's, collaborate on a joint meeting. Yep.
So, Mr. Garsted, with the motion on the floor, what do we do to postpone until time certain?
Well, you've got a motion to amend that I haven't heard a second on yet. So that, I don't know if you want to call for a second on that motion to amend?
Is there a second to an ambiguous amendment? From Mr. Weber's, yes, and second by Lunsky.
So now you'd have to withdraw your motion to amend, and then the second motion would be to postpone the decision. And I'm not sure how you're going to break this up, because I'm looking at the proposal here, and it does mention both bridges, quotes, intercity bridge and Merrifield.
Great.
So you're kind of dissecting what was proposed by the, however, you certainly have the discretion to make a motion to say we're directing it only at the Merrifield Bridge, and to then require the consultant to amend their proposal to only be the Merrifield Bridge if that's what was requested. So at this point, you'd have to, you've got a motion and a second on the amendment by Mr. Weber, or Councilmember Weber, and if you wanted to withdraw that motion, you certainly can, and then you'd start afresh again with respect to what amendments you might want to offer up to the pending motion.
Or I could withdraw the current motion and make a new motion to postpone until the first COW meeting after a joint council meeting is held with East Grand Forks.
Well, you've got a pending motion on the table right now.
He's
which
saying
is
he
your
would-
amendment.
Right, but if I were to withdraw that and make a new motion to postpone until the first city council meeting after we're able to arrange a joint Grand Forks, East Grand Forks council meeting.
Correct.
I'll do that. I'll withdraw my current motion, and I'll make a motion to postpone.
I'm sorry, Mr. Weber?
Yes?
Just for point of clarification.
Sure.
I believe several of us are happy to support asking them to amend their proposal to study the Merrifield Bridge. So you could make that motion and then postpone the portion related to the intercity bridge, should you wish. Otherwise, you're welcome to do anything you want to.
Right. My concern is that this Merrifield Bridge does nothing to change the traffic counts at Gateway, Demers, or the 3,000 plus additional cars going over the Minnesota Bridge.
That's purely speculation.
That's according to the
Again,
2045.
which is purely speculation.
No.
Yes.
Speculation?
Yeah, it's speculation.
It's in the report. It's
I
in the
know,
traffic-
I know it's in the report, it's in the models, but the models are based upon human assumptions. It's speculation.
No, the models are based on data that they collected on drivers. It's not
The
speculation.
bridge isn't there. It's impossible to say definitively that it's not going to change the traffic on the other bridges.
So you're saying none of the traffic models are any good because they're all based on speculation?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that people are flawed, models are flawed. I'm not saying that they are flawed to the point that they're irrelevant. I'm just saying that they're flawed. By their nature, they're flawed.
Just to respond, and I'll follow up with what Mr. Weber said. If you compare, again, the model, it's what all the traffic projections are, but it is a model. It clearly identifies that in the 2045, if you look at the traffic on Gateway Drive with a midtown or mid-city bridge versus one, we'll have 1,000 more vehicles per day going on Gateway Drive. Actually, and you look at Demers through downtown, again, comparing those two projections, it's 1,100. And then on Minnesota, it's 3,000 more vehicles per day going down that if you build that bridge without looking at the intercity bridge. So it's hard to support, for me to support that bridge on Merrifield, knowing that it's going to significantly add to an already difficult traffic safety issue and pedestrian safety in town. I like the idea, and I'm not against it, but you got to look at the unintended consequences this way, and it's going to put more traffic, and even in my ward that's on Demers Avenue, far enough west, we still get more traffic on it as you look at the traffic growth that'll happen between now and 2045. And I can show you the numbers. The data's there.
But that's not due to the construction of the Merrifield Bridge.
Pardon, if you build the Merrifield Bridge.
If you build the Merrifield Bridge, let me see if I understand you correctly. If we build the Merrifield Bridge, because we build the bridge, there's more traffic on Demers and on...
You will, both traffic projections will grow throughout the city, okay?
Yep.
And so you'll know that there'll be growth in the city, but if you compare that growth in traffic on, we'll say Gateway Drive, when you have a bridge at 32nd compared to that growth if you have a bridge at Merrifield Road.
Sure,
you
so
will
you're
have
talking,
1,000 more.
if Merrifield instead of 32nd, there will be more traffic. Yes, certainly I will.
They all have more traffic.
100% agree with that.
But you will have that much different. And Minnesota, you'll add an extra 3,000 vehicles per day.
Yep, I believe that that's what the model shows, yes. I believe that's true. Mr. Weber?
Thank you, President Sandy. Mayor Gander, President Olsted, based on Representative, Councilmember Kavami's idea of a joint council meeting, is that something you think we've got thumbs up on that? I will withdraw my current motion. And with that withdrawal, I'd like to move postponement until the first COW after we are able to arrange a joint meeting between the two city councils to discuss this further.
Mayor Gander, will you host that meeting?
Absolutely, we will.
Great, sounds good.
Cookies?
Yeah, bring cookies, yes, sounds good. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Kavami, good idea. Any other comment? Hearing none, all those in favor of postponement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Were you opposed, Mr. Weigel, or were you just
That's
late?
correct.
Okay. Motion carries. Mr. Weigel dissents. Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Oh, great. It just keeps getting better. Item 2.9, discussion of 2022-23 and beyond snowmobile route.
Good evening, Council President Sandy and committee members. City code requires the chief of police to designate authorized snowmobile routes through the city, and this is to be done annually. This year, We've been working with Snowmobile Group, the Greenway Committee, engineering. We've done several rides through the area that we're interested in moving the snowmobile route to try to create the best and safest option for snowmobilers to go through the city. Full disclosure, there is no real good option to get snowmobilers through the city that makes everyone happy. Currently, we utilize 42nd Street as the north-south corridor. That route has been that way since when I started 28 plus years ago. There's been a lot of change in the city, but not a lot of change in the actual snowmobile route. And we don't feel that 42nd is a safe option for snowmobiles anymore. I sense that snowmobilers don't feel that way either, because I haven't seen a snowmobile on 42nd Street in I don't know how many years. So we're trying to find a route that is safe, and we explored the option of going through the Greenway. Currently, the current route does utilize the Greenway from Demers Avenue north, and we're looking at extending that the entire length of Greenway from 62nd Avenue south to the north end of town. There have been a lot of, like I said, visits to the Greenway, routing exactly what would be the most safe for all. The proposed snowmobile route stays away from the bike path, stays away from cross-country ski trails, and would be properly signed and so forth. But what we found in this process is that it's a very polarizing event. Many community members are upset about this, and I know many of you up there have probably heard from community members. And on the public safety side of things, we do feel the route is safe. We're comfortable with the safety side of the route. We feel it does provide separation between the various users of the Greenway, but we fall short of approving the route at this point because of the polarizing nature of where it is. And we're seeking guidance from City Council to determine the best path forward. We, as I said, are comfortable with the route on the safety side of things and would go ahead and approve that route if the City Council so wished. The other option would be to slow down a little bit and work on other options. Keeping 42nd as an option, really, that's probably the worst option we have, because it just is not safe and people aren't utilizing it, and we can't recommend people to utilize it because we don't feel that it's a safe route. So the way I see it at this point really is press on with what we feel is the safe route, or slow down and work with various council members and their constituents and see if there is another route that would work for the city. And of course, keeping the snowmobile group involved and engineering as well, and the Greenway. So, and I know Ms. Parvey was potentially interested in speaking a little bit as well. She's here in support of this, but did you have any words?
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Ms. Mackey?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mackey. Chief Mackey. Ms. Parvey? Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'd just say that, you know, we know there has been a request from the snowmobile group to be able to utilize this space, and our role with the Greenway is really to work with users, try to accommodate all users. We don't, I guess we feel like there's a space out there, and there could be use, or there could be enough room for everybody. We know there's snowmobiles that are currently using the space, both on the existing route as well as not in areas where they should be, so this could help provide them with a path through the Greenway. We do know that there's a number of users, including council members, that have shared with us that they like the space without the motorized vehicles and really appreciate what it's become without them. So we'll continue to work with the direction the council provides. Just wanted to share that we've heard kind of both ends. There's a request to use it, and there's an interest in not providing any use throughout that area as well. So.
Yes, Mr. Veen?
Just a question, what's the rules on East Grand Forks, Minnesota side for snowmobiles?
What are the rules?
Yeah, do they have a path?
I'm not familiar with what the rules are, but my understanding is they do not have a snowmobile route on their side of the river.
So they aren't allowed on the east side?
They don't have a designated route. I guess I don't know what the applicable statutes would be referenced that.
Not a public comment? To the best of my knowledge, there is no snowmobiling in the city of East Grand Forks.
There is a route.
So,
North of the Blue Moose.
Ms. Parvey, do you know the answer to the question?
I don't, I'm sorry. I do know that they're allowed in East Grand Forks, I just don't know.
That's probably Demers, similar to the Grand Forks side, Demers North, to the golf course, right? Yeah, thank you.
President Sandy,
Yeah, Mr. Weigel.
Deputy Chief Mackey, are snowmobiles allowed on the river?
Yes.
They are allowed on the river. We don't necessarily recommend the use of the river. We wouldn't include the use of a river as a designated route. However, we would not interfere with those using the river, and ultimately that does fall in the jurisdiction of the Sheriff's Department.
Sounds good. So somebody trying to go from north to south could use the Red River to get where they're going?
That would be an option, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Mr. Weber, yes, sir?
Chief Mackey, clearly 42nd is not safe, or it's no longer safe, and it's not even used. It's no longer used. However, I'm concerned about placing the safety of out-of-town snowmobilers, because that's who would be using this north-south route, over the Grand Forks citizens who currently use the Greenway. This violates our current ordinance prohibiting motorized vehicles in the Greenway, or at least it would require setting aside or otherwise providing an exemption to our own ordinance. We have an ordinance against motorized vehicles. We'd have to this would create an exemption to that ordinance.
Essentially, designating the route would create that exemption. During specified time periods, December to April, snowmobiles would be allowed to use that specific portion of the Greenway without being in violation, but it would be a very refined area with signs and so forth, and any deviation from that route would be a violation, but staying on the route, once it's designated, if it's designated as a snowmobile route, would not be a violation. And to your point regarding out-of-towners, I don't have the data to dispute that it would be primarily out-of-towners. I suspect you're correct. But regardless of out-of-towners or Grand Forks residents, we would still be concerned about their safety and safe passageway through the city.
I think the Greenway takeover, it receives one of these exemptions for motorized vehicles. That's for not even a week, right? And it's very limited space. And that seems to get people riled up. So this would be for months, every day. Also, I'm concerned about the cost of enforcement. That would make this difficult, if not impossible. The proposal is for a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit through that entire stretch.
That's correct.
When I see snowmobiles down there currently illegally using the Greenway, I don't see them going under 15 miles per hour. And it's hard to imagine snowmobilers using that entire route and staying under 15 miles per hour. That's during the current illegal use, which is hard enough to police. And so I like being a welcoming community. I don't want to turn down commerce for local businesses, but this route doesn't give snowmobilers any direct access to bars, et cetera, as has been sort of implied or suggested. So for now, I like the idea of just slowing down and whether people are currently using 42nd or not, that's been the route for several years. I think a more holistic, complete review process needs to be engaged with both sides of the river. For instance, we don't want pedestrian bridges, the pedestrian bridges going over the river becoming ad hoc snowmobile routes either, which is another concern I'd have. So I'd be in favor of slowing this down at this point. This is information only tonight, so you're just looking for kind of our sense of things. That would be my...
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Osowski?
Yeah, so I just have a comment. You know, we live in North Dakota. It is cold here, and I think anything that we can do to promote people from getting out of their houses and enjoying the fresh air, like the snowmobile track, I think that it is a great idea, and I do not think 42nd is safe. I think that this is a better place for a snowmobile track, and so I guess I don't really see anything wrong with it, especially if we're moving the snowmobiles off of 42nd and just moving them closer to the river. And the Greenway is all of ours and should be enjoyed by everybody. So that's just my opinion.
Ms. Osowski, how often do you go to the Greenway?
I've been to the Greenway takeover a few times.
Good. Okay, sounds good. Further comment? Yeah, Mr.
I'd agree with Councilmember Weber on just slowing down. 42nd doesn't seem like it's a good option, but I haven't heard any positive feedback towards this.
Ms. Lunsky?
So, well, first I'll thank you for making my phone ring all weekend, but...
Full disclosure, it wasn't me.
So some concerns that have been brought to my attention. There's a quarter of a mile between 8th and 13th where the ski trail runs low towards the river. So the snowmobile actually they'll have to cross, which seems very unsafe. And then the snowmobile actually goes up top closer to the walking trail. Is that true?
I don't have the specifics on that, but I know there are some crossings.
Okay, and then there is another quarter of a mile where they're about 40 feet from each other, the snowmobile and the ski. And I just think the concern I've been hearing is this from a lot of skiers, some bird watchers, is that you lose that serenity of the Greenway when you have a loud snowmobile next to you. So it almost feels like allowing motorized vehicles, you're taking away from the other groups, and because I don't know how you can have them coexist. Some of the other concerns I had, so if it's allowed, you're not allowed to go from your house to the trail, right? You're supposed to bring it on a trailer?
Correct, yeah, there's designated drop-off spots unless you happen to be living on the trail, yes.
And what age do you have to be to drive a snowmobile in Grand Forks?
You put me on the spot. I think 16?
I think it's 12.
12, okay.
So I'm just concerned on the cost of enforcing that. I think that's going to add a large cost to your department.
For sure. We, particularly with the first couple years, if this is designated, we would need to be in the vicinity, heavy on the education side of things and also on the enforcement side of things, just to make sure that the route does stay safe. The benefit of having a specific designated route and signs and so forth is people will know where these snowmobiles are supposed to be. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stay there. That's where the enforcement and the education comes in. But it's not really much less safe, and it's probably more safe than currently where people are violating the rules and using the Greenway without having a designated route. So at least it would kind of corral them in the right area. But yeah, there certainly could be some conflicts, but it still seems to be the safest route. Not saying it's the going to be the right direction for Grand Forks, but we've considered many of those things, and education and enforcement are definitely going to have to be part of this discussion, and it's probably not going to be a popular thing for those that are using the Greenway, and we would certainly anticipate our complaints would go up on the Greenway as well. I think in the last 3 years, we've had 41 specific snowmobile complaints in the Greenway, and I would anticipate that significantly increasing.
So I have another question too of, I know Fargo doesn't allow snowmobiles. They're quite a bit larger than we are, but what's the threshold of when a town shouldn't allow snowmobiles? I know there's not a magic answer, just, I think we should think about that. Are we getting large enough where snowmobiles shouldn't be allowed? I agree with Becky that we have winter for 6 months and we need more reason to get outside. I just think snowmobiles are going to overpower everything else on the Greenway. And then my last question is would we need to then, would you need to buy snowmobiles to be on the Greenway to enforce?
So the police department already has 2 snowmobiles that are fully striped, have red and blue lights on them, and we do currently enforce Greenway violations and so forth on our snowmobiles. I can't say regularly use them because, as has been pointed out, it is manpower intensive. We have to dedicate officers to be on the snowmobiles in the Greenway. So typically it's focused enforcement at this point. So if we're getting complaints, we'll send officers down on snowmobiles. But we already have them. They're staged near the river at this point in one of the city buildings. And our officers know how to use them, when they can use them, what they're supposed to do. But there are certainly limitations when it comes to our snowmobiles as well. We're not going to chase people. We're not going to do a lot of those sort of things that, certain violations are not worth jeopardizing anyone's safety.
Well, and I just read the comments from the survey that was done by the Greenway, and it does seem overwhelmingly that people are against it.
Absolutely, and that's what gave us pause in approving that route and why we wanted to bring it forward, just to see really what guidance you would provide to us, and appreciate the information so far.
I think for those people around here that are lucky to enjoy some outdoor time in the summer at a lake cabin, you go there for the peace and the quiet and the nice serene atmosphere, and then all of a sudden there are 2 or 3 or 4 jet skis that are right out in front of where you are, and you wonder where they came from, and they're there because wherever they live doesn't want them in front of their home, so they come somewhere else in front of your home, and it's loud and it's noisy, and I think for the people, for the snowmobilers in the city of Grand Forks, if you live here and you have to put your snowmobiles on a trailer anyway to get them to a place to drop them off, I don't know why you just don't go an hour east to Fertile and hit the snowmobile trails and where they're marked and it's easy and then you'd have a great time rather than going 1.5 miles or 2 miles along the river and turning around. I've never actually understood the whole
And there is a
concept.
snowmobile route that starts at Blue Moose, so you could go
Right.
across.
So, anyway, Chief Mackey, you're looking for us to tell you whether we think this is a good idea or not, or I think, I guess I'm just reading the tea leaves here, other than one person that thinks we should spend more time outside, which I agree with. I don't think there's been a favorable reception with the council to put the path along the Greenway.
Right, and your input is valuable, thank you. Like I said, we paused it,
Can we
approving
go
this
back
because
to
of
the
the
chief
feedback.
and see if we can come up with a different plan?
We will do so.
Great,
All right, thank you for your time.
thank you. And thank you, Ms. Parvey, as well, and Ms. Greendahl. Item 210, last but not least, downtown parking management RFQ. Good evening, Ms. Edwardson.
Good evening. I'm Andrea Edwardson. I'm Deputy City Planner. I don't make frequent appearances here, but I am one of the staff members working on downtown parking. Our downtown parking system consists of 4 facilities, 2 surface lots, the Riverboat Road lot, as well as the Division Avenue lot, which is right across from Mission. And then the primary ones being our 2 parking ramps, Central and Corporate. As you're all aware, downtown's been undergoing a development boom in recent years, and particularly with those under construction right now, we're expecting a different type of user and different type of parking need with those facilities. So the Olivan Hotel would be a 79-room hotel connected via a private skywalk to the downtown parking ramp. That'll bring new daily users to the system, so that would mean we would need to be more robust in terms of signage and education and marketing, because those new users are going to have an increase in challenges in navigating the ramps and stuff like that. The Beacon project is going to also be a different type than we've experienced, being the event nature of that. Our ramps are anticipated to take any overflow event parking for that. And then the Franklin on 4th project is just a wonderful addition to the density downtown, bringing 70,000 of commercial square footage along with 122 units. And so while those types are more typical than we've seen for our users, our 8 to 5 employee and a handful of residential, it's just adding to the overall density of downtown and our parking in a good way. So knowing those challenges, staff stepped into an incremental kind of management already. We thought the scope would be much smaller in terms of looking at signage improvements for our current system, as well as some customer service for how we issue our permits. So we are under contract for that right now. However, when we got into the signage and upgrading, many of our stakeholders came forward and said, don't just sign our current policies, can the ramps and their users be rearranged and reorganized in terms of who parks where and who has priority, first floor, second floor, whatever. That rearrangement triggers a need for professional involvement, because that just is beyond staff's ability to know who's best suited to go where and what appropriate pricing. So looked at management for that. That compounded with the fact that our property management housing authority has had to streamline its services. It was no longer being our property management due to staffing issues and things of that nature. So we're also in the looking for property management for all 4 of our facilities going forward. So given those pressures that kind of developed over the last 6 months, staff took a step back and looked at a wholesale approach of what would be best for the parking system, coming forward with this RFQ to have everything consolidated into one management system with the industry knowledge and professional experience we would get with that. Hopefully we would see rather quickly an increase in the system, as well as increased signage and marketing and just a wholesale better operations across the board. So with that, we are asking for the issuance of the RFQ. We do have a letter of support from the Olivan, as they have expressed significant concerns of how things are currently operating and a need for change before they open here fall of next year. As well as the Downtown Development Association, and Blue thankfully has kind of waited the evening out if you have any questions for him on how the downtown businesses may feel about this as well. So with that, I could answer any questions.
Questions from Ms. Edwardson? Yes. Ms.
So
Linsky.
you said the Olivan will have a private walkway, not the existing walkway?
The existing walkway is private. It's privately owned, I believe, by Edgewood, and it does connect privately, but into the ramp.
So when the Olivan is around, it will be usable, because right now you park there and you can't walk to Skies.
They do intend to have it more open as a primary connection, given that they're parking, they have limited parking in the back of or planned parking in the back of their site for pickups and drop-offs, but for the most part, their tenants and clients and customers will be parking in the central ramp.
Where are the Central students going to park?
That's a great question when it comes up in terms of reorganizing and who should go where. And we are very thankful that we do have a significant amount of students parking in the ramp, probably around 100 on average. And so that has gone very well. Are they better suited on the first floor, other floors? Politically and personally, they probably have their preference to stay on the first floor, but given the other pressures we're experiencing downtown, does it make sense to evaluate that? Is an absolutely valid request. They may stay where they're at, but just an overall wholesale of the needs of the different users we have coming into the system an evaluation of how that's organized is valid.
Any thoughts, Mr. Weber? Comments, questions?
With all of Ann, with the events at the Beacon that we can anticipate, with the fantastic growth that we're experiencing downtown, it's a new day for parking. But even with these developments, we will still have adequate parking. We have an abundance of parking. Over 4,000 spots, I think peak usage we're around 47%. So we have enough parking to accommodate all of our success. But what I'm hearing is that we need help managing these parking assets. Plus, I believe, based on the experience of other cities in our state, this proposal would take a problem that currently costs us money and holds the promise of making better use of our parking assets and producing revenue. That's been the case in other cities, so I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Moved by Weber, second by Lunsky. Further comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Kavami.
This will come back to us after the RFQ process.
Correct. Council would have to approve it next week, and then, yes, we would go out, get submittals, and then the negotiated firm would come back for final approval.
Thank you.
How many parking management firms are there in the tri-state area?
Can't tell you, we'll find out. There is one going successfully well in Fargo that we anticipate and hope we'll get a response from. And then we'll also advertise. There's national parking firms we can send out, as we do want somebody who has industry background and experience. So we can advertise through those national channels, as well as look through, I don't know if the Herald would be the best option, or maybe the Star Tribune in Minneapolis, looking at different parking firms who may be there, but we'll look into that and advertise appropriately.
So Fargo currently uses a parking management firm.
They do. They started off with managing just their ramps and their off-street, and they have since expanded that this firm manages both off-street and on-street enforcement.
Do they do enforcement as well?
They do.
They do.
This would not include enforcement for us. PD would retain enforcement at this time.
How do the people of Fargo feel about
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
from the financial people in Fargo or from the actual people in Fargo?
The system is making money in Fargo, so
Mhm.
I can't say that they would be upset about that.
I can imagine the people living downtown don't like it very much. All right, well, I guess we'll see how this goes. Yes, Ms. Linsky?
So the people living downtown now in downtown Grand Forks, they either have to park on the street and move, or they have to pay for a permit. So I think right now, I've also heard from a business owner downtown, and parking is free after 5, but you still have to download the app. It's very confusing. So I think we definitely need some change.
I would agree. My only concern is that people don't like change. That's, I totally agree. Our parking needs some help. So, there's any other comments? Hearing none, there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Move to adjourn by Weber, second by Kavami. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, we're adjourned. Thanks. Good meeting.